All right, what's up everyone? Kevin Leslie, and today we're going to talk about prep before test. So essentially, a lot of athletes are doing 5K testing, 6K testing, 30-minute testing, you name it, right? That endurance-based test that is somewhere between, say, 15 minutes and 30 minutes, if not even more like 10K, something a little bit greater. And one of the things I always tell athletes is if you are trying to best prep yourself for a max effort, right? You want to expose yourself to that distance before you actually take the test. And that's where the importance of prep comes in. You have to prep before you test. Just like before the SAT, you take the pre-SAT or you take practice SATs. So essentially it's the same concept, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And if you like this channel, if you like this information, please subscribe to the channel. We have rowing videos coming out every week and continuing to help evolve your rowing and push your fitness forward. So let's get into it today, right? So prep before you test. And again, 5K testing is the most common. That's what we're going to talk about today. But a lot of athletes do 6K, especially if it's the college level. 30-minute testing is very common, 10K testing, right? So again, find your test and take the same principles and apply them to your own training. But now, why is testing important? We just kind of talked about it, right? The goal is to expose yourself to that distance, to set you up for success. And many times athletes jump in blind to their first 5K test of the year. Again, I'm going to speak in terms of just 5K today. They jump into their first 5K test. They think about it in terms of, hey, I went this pace last year. 12 months later, I feel like I should be a little bit better. And they go out and then all of a sudden they get a quarter of the way into that test, halfway through the test, and they're like, whoa, this is new. This is different. I haven't been here in a while because they haven't exposed themselves to that intensity and to that distance, right? So you're trying to set yourself up for success. So essentially, okay, how can you actually expose yourself ahead of time, right? Maybe 2 or 3 days before, even a week before, right? But expose yourself to that ahead of time so that when you approach that test, you now have exposure to it and you know how to handle it when it starts to get really challenging, right? So the basic principles of a test that I like to kind of teach athletes to be able to, again, whether it's 5K, 6K, 30-minute, whatever it is, you're essentially aiming for 1 to 2 times the test length. So if it's 5K testing, 5,000 meters, okay, you're either doing a broken up 5K, right? That's 1 times the test length, or maybe you're doing, right, we have some examples here, right? Maybe you're doing something that is greater than that testing length, right? Maybe you're doing 7,500 meters worth of work to expose you to 5K type distance broken up, right? So again, it's 1 to 2 times test length with short rest intervals in between, something that allows you to recover, to mentally regroup, but to then still feel a little bit of fatigue heading into that next round or that next piece. Because again, you're trying to not only train the exposure, the intensity, but also the mental side that is required to truly execute a test, right? So again, prep is about 1 to 2 times test length with short rest intervals in between. All right, now let me give you a couple examples, right? So again, speaking in the context of 5K testing, because I think that's the most common, at least for high school rowers, right? Speaking in the context of 5K testing, here are a couple examples that I really like to do with athletes, right? So the first one, 2K, 2K, 1K with 2 minutes rest in between. This is my favorite because I think it's easy enough for athletes to do on their own, get a really good assessment, and it's just a 5K broken up. So essentially, right, so 2K, 2K, 1K, right, you're gonna do 2K at essentially your opening profile. You're gonna row into that second one, or that second 2K, and then you're gonna close it out with the 1,000 meter at the end. And essentially, this test, because it's only 2 minutes rest in between, you have enough to regroup, but you're still feeling a little bit of fatigue heading into that next piece and heading into the last piece. So essentially, if you were to max out this test here, or this prep work here, you should confidently say, and this is another key consideration, adjust accordingly, right? Just because you're doing a test prep doesn't mean that the split is going to directly align. Just because you go 2-minute splits for 2K, 2K, 1K on average, doesn't mean you're guaranteed to go 2-minute splits on your 5K test. But what you can do is if you max out this test, you adjust accordingly. And in my experience, this test is about 1 to 2 splits faster than a 5K max effort, right? So if you go 158 for this test here, or for this prep work, you should feel very confident that you could go 2-minute splits for your 5K test, right? You might start out at 2:02, then work it down into a 2:01, 2 minutes, and then drop it under, right, to 1:59, 1:58 to average that 2-minute split. But you have the exposure to something that's a little bit faster before you go to take the test. 4 by 1250, right? So 4 by 1250 to 1,250 meters with 90 seconds rest, right? So shorter rest interval, but also shorter pieces. You're doing 4 of them, right? Add that up, that's 5,000 meters as well. Now, this is a great test for giving you just an exposure to 5,000 meters broken up. The only reason I don't like it as much is because 1250, right? If you're going at 2-minute splits, that's 5 minutes, right? It's not going to give you the same exposure, right? The same mental side, right? You can kind of get through a 5-minute test or a 5-minute interval, regroup in 90 seconds, and then attack it again. Regroup for 90 seconds. But what it does really help with is pacing, intensity, getting exposure to the rates, right? So 4 by 1250 is a great test for giving you, or is a great prep work for giving you exposure to that intensity, if not even a little bit beyond that, right? So this is a prep work that's probably going to be faster, significantly, or quite a few splits faster, maybe 0 to 3 splits faster than a true 5K test, because it's shorter intervals. You can attack it, right? But what you can do is, again, get exposure to the distance and the rates and the intensity that's required. This one, right? This is a fun one, right? So this is an example of something that is greater than 5K distance, right? So this is about 1.5 times 5K distance. So 3 by 2,500 meters with 2.5 minutes rest, right? So the rest, you get a little bit longer rest because they're longer pieces, but not that much longer, right? So you're doing 3 by 2,500 meters at essentially 5K intensity, right? So your goal for the 5K, you're gonna do 3 by 2,500 meters. And this is 7,500 meters worth of work that you're trying to do at 5K plus or minus a split. And because it's greater than that distance, this is gonna give you really good confidence heading into that piece, right? Heading into that 5K. And the reason I like this, right? Those longer pieces, right? That, 9 to 10 minute long piece allows you to get deep enough into that piece, right? You're talking about 50% of the piece right here. It allows you to get deep enough into that interval where you start to really play or think about the mental side. And that's a really important thing, right? 2K, 2K, 1K, okay, 2K a little bit greater. Here, you're not thinking too much about the mental side of testing. Here, you definitely are, right? Those 3 by 2,500 meters, you're getting to the end of that first 2,500 meters, and you're essentially entering the second half of your 5K test. Okay, well now you rest for 2.5 minutes, and then you go again. Then you rest for 2.5 minutes, then you go again. So not only are you training the physiological requirement of a 5K test, you're training the mental component, and that's what you might not get from these pieces. These ones might be better suited to train, a little bit minus or a little bit beyond 5K testing. This is probably going to be pretty darn close, right? So again, I really like this one as well because it gives you that exposure to greater than 5K distance, and it trains that mental side. So again, that's the way you want to think about it, right? You're trying to set yourself up, you're trying to expose yourself to that distance or to that intensity so that you go in very confident, right? You are now operating in the known. You're not just guessing when you go to do a 5K, right? And again, 5K, 6K, 30-minute, whatever it may be, always prep before you test. Always prep before you test so that you go in with confidence in what you can do rather than going in and figuring out what you can't do, right? And that's the key. So anyway, if you like this information, please subscribe to the channel. We got rowing videos. If you like this format on the board where we actually talk strategy and things like that, give a like, give a comment. But again, subscribe to the channel. We got videos coming out every week. Other than that, keep rowing. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.